just recently finalized an alternative peer group coaches fidelity tool that we're hoping to share with you all and the rest of the national APG members, and to try to pilot this and get some feedback. Um, uh, and then we're still working on an APG uh, facilitator um, fidelity tool that we would also, once that's finalized, love to get folks feedback on. We had created a fidelity tool back in, I don't know, June or July for APG facilitators. And then our model changed a little bit, and we want to make sure that it's aligned with with what we're doing. And so uh, we put it on the back burner and have just kind of refocused attention to trying to revise that. So that should be coming in the next few months. And then we have been trying to standardize some of the documentation procedures across the New Hampshire APGs, and kind of get all of our nuts and bolts in a row and all of that. Uh, and so we would love all of your feedback on how your current APGs bring documentation, emergency contacts, information on allergies, any of that to external events, that are offsite, and maintain, confidentiality of those records. So we've been kind of problem solving around that. And then we're looking to launch a kind of a standardized format for collecting feedback from stakeholders. So I know I reached out to folks last month asking for how and how often you are, soliciting satisfaction input, and, just regular input on APG programming or community connections from referral sources, family members, caregivers, etc. And so we're, as Sean said, we're anxious to learn from you all, the experts, to really more formally develop our model, and we hope to launch another APG by the end of 2021 in New Hampshire as well.
Heidi, would you go back to the very first things you talked about a little bit and expand a little bit on those first couple of things?
Sure, yeah, the fidelity tools.
Uh-huh.
So we shared our the practice profile, I think, a while back. So in New Hampshire, we are huge proponents of implementation science. So if you're not familiar with a practice profile, that comes from implementation science, which is really just the science of the study of how organizations and human behavior changes. And so, there are researchers who study that kind of stuff. And so we really use the implementation science model in any interventions or practices that we implement at the University of New Hampshire. And I think DHHS is a big proponent as well of implementation science. So they've kind of jumped on that bandwagon as well. And so essentially the process that implementation science takes you through is really, convening stakeholders to clearly define and outline what are the core components of your intervention so that it's measurable, it's objective, it's observable by outsiders. And then you use that to guide the development of the practice, as well as tools to support the practice. And so with alternative peer groups, what we've done is we've taken that practice profile and we kind of separated out what are the core components of an alternative peer group that we think are related to an organization's success in hosting an alternative peer group, and then what are the components that are specific to APG facilitators in terms of facilitating the APG with fidelity, or high high quality services, right? So we did that, and then and so we created an alternative peer group implementation checklist at the organizational level. And then we created an APG facilitator fidelity tool, and that tool is used as a self-reflection for APG facilitators, but also for for us folks like Michael and myself at the university, where we do evaluation. We want to have clear measures of what that looks like. And
Have you
then
shared those tools, especially around well, I'm interested in both, but what really caught my attention at the moment is the qualities of the staff, counselors.
Yeah. So that one is still in development. So I think that one, I mean, we have a draft that I could certainly share, but we have, what we did is we originally developed that based on the 7 challenges treatment model, which was closely aligned with how we were providing supports early on. And then amid COVID, things changed. I mean, we're still using the 7 challenges model, but we after the development of that initial tool, we had finalized the practice profile, which has changed things a little bit. So we're going back and we're revising that. So I'm happy to share, the original tool that we identified, which was really in line with the core components of the Creating Connections treatment model. And the newer version that's still in development is veers is more in line with the practice profile for alternative peer groups that was finalized. And then for coaches, so we I don't know if this is kind of standard practice, but in New Hampshire, we and again, this relates back to implementation science, but we're also huge proponents of coaching. And so coaching, as opposed to supervision, is really focused on promoting best practices. So oftentimes coaching is separate from supervision. So you usually have an on-site supervisor, but you might also have a coach that is really focused on promoting best practice to a particular intervention. And so the coach's fidelity tool looks at core characteristics of those coaches that would be working with the APG facilitators.
Can you give an example of a characteristic that may be identified or may have already been identified?
Yeah. So, and I could pull it up and share too, but I don't want to take up the
No, it's okay.
all the time. So just being strengths based. So the coach helps an APG facilitator identify and utilize strengths, areas of resilience, and sources of hope. And that would be, kind of across a scale ranging from needing improvement to advance. So, the coach almost always helps the APG facilitator identify and utilize strengths, areas of resilience, and sources of hope, or the coach rarely helps, and there's kind of a continuum. And we would ask coaches to self-reflect and then also have an external coach administer the fidelity tool.
Interesting. The reason why that catches my attention so much is, again, we have over time.
Hi,
Hey, check you out. We have over time always, had people go, who makes, and I will tell you, if you have good people, your groups make it. If you don't have good people, they don't make it. Well, but what does that mean? What are good people? And identifying and being able to prove that out has always been something we've had to reduce it to the term, in talent-based hiring, those kind of things. So anytime you start talking about elements that go into an effective staff member, you got my attention, and how to identify it, how to qualify it, etc. You definitely got my attention. But thank you, Heidi. And yeah, share that stuff with us if you could, please.
Yeah, absolutely.
You always do. Who's next?
Heidi, you mentioned something about how do you keep track of all the emergency contacts and things when you're
Yeah.
off site, right? Do you guys use an electronic health record or something like that that you can access when you're off site? I know we've done that before, to a certain degree.
Yeah, so our APGs are so Youth Move New Hampshire has a version of an electronic medical record. I think it's not super easy to log in if you're offsite. Is that right, Youth Move folks? But then our other two APGs, oh no, it is easy to log in offsite. Okay, great. For some
Yeah,
reason,
so we got a new VPN that was downloaded onto all of our work
oh,
computers that
super.
allows us to connect remotely.
Okay, great. So there, and Youth Move New Hampshire is, still in the development phases, so they have not piloted their APG, an APG. The other two organizations do not have any kind of electronic medical records system, and so we talked about having a paper file. I work with a lot of community mental health centers, and if they need to have access to information when they're out in the community, then a lot of times they'll use a lockbox that's in their car, with like a binder with that confidential information. But so I was just curious about, how other organizations do it, particularly low-tech organizations that don't have the funds or access to electronic medical records.
I would think what they're doing is probably the best way. What else can you do?
Right.
Yeah.
You're using like a lockbox, right?
Right.
I know some of our community mental health centers here in New Hampshire, we have some that have had electronic medical records for like 12 or 15 years, and others that just got it like last year. So depending on where you were in the state.
Wow. Yeah.
All right. Who else? Michelle, I know y'all got big stuff happening. What's your goals this year? I'm gonna pick on you.
Well, mine don't feel very exciting because it's just getting the basics up and running. We have had to, like everyone else, get really creative in the time of the pandemic. And we are dead set on opening doors to the physical space February 1st. We've been having the kids meet outside since about, I guess it'd be the first part of December when everything got shut down again. And I don't know how much you all know about Seattle, but it rains. So our outside meetings, luckily one of our local community centers, they had put up these big canopies and they were hosting workout classes under these canopies. And the time that we meet on Wednesdays happened to be available under this canopy. So we meet, and the kids are troopers. We often have 15 or more kids show up, and we sit under these canopies. But February 1st, we are moving into our new space. I have did a bunch of research on air purifiers and ordered medical grade air purifiers to add to the space to go along with masking and social distancing, which you know how it goes with teens. We ask them to stay 6 feet apart. And next thing you know, you look over and they're sharing a vape pen. So we're just taking every precaution we can to get things up and running and expanding the programming one step at a time. So that's mostly what we're focused on. We did get our nonprofit board finally fully. We had 3 board members. We're now up to 6. So we finally have a good slate of board members for the nonprofit, and we met for the first time yesterday. And we're really excited because we've had a lot of white people that were, wanting to be involved. And we really had to make the extra effort of reaching out and finding people of color who were interested in what we were doing and active in the community. And they were out there, and they are like we had 3 new members join us yesterday, and they're powerhouses. I'm so excited to be working with them. And each one of them represents a different storyline that will reach kids that we couldn't have reached. So super excited about how that's going to create a deeper program and expand our reach out into the community. So that's where we're at right now. I have lots of big ideas that are, on the table. This boarding house or sober foster living for teens is a huge one. One of the next steps for what we'll do this year is launch our young adult program. So also looking at, we have some kids graduating this year from our local recovery high school. And one in particular, her mom was telling me, it's a local college that she's going to go to college, which is amazing. And it happens to be local, which is also fantastic. And so she's so nervous about this child going off and living on their own. And I thought, well, what if we had a young adult sober? That would be really easy to set up a young adult sober living situation for the kids who are just graduating this year. So that's something that while you guys were talking, I thought, little light bulb, oh, we can do the young adult one. We just have to find a house.
You get in touch with the Association of Recovery of Higher Education, ARHE, Tim Raybolt. Find out what they're doing there with, if that college there is, what they're doing already. Because I can tell you that those programs that the ARH is running are very similar to alternative peer group programs. They're like everything else. Different colleges have different strengths and different sizes, but they're very, very similar to APGs, and they're already there, and they may have something going there that'll plug in really well, Michelle.
Yeah, this one is this college in particular is local, and so I think we could just fold it into our program, because we're going to have more of those high school graduates that are going to want to go off and live on their own.
Yeah.
And so why not try to set up a sober living situation that's funneling APG kids who have graduated high school into sober living?
Yeah. Did y'all hear that ding? Is that
Sorry,
on my?
that's me.
It was you.
I have this fancy computer and it does so much, and I love that my text messages come through on it, but for the life of me, being an old person, can't figure out how to mute it when I'm on a meeting.
Oh, by the way, I have been recording this. I didn't get the very front of it where we talked about what we were going to be doing today, our plans for the year and those kinds of things, but I went ahead and hit recording when I remembered to do it, thanks to a little reminder from Robin. But then I forgot to mention it to you and get your permission. Is everybody okay with this? It'll be available to public. Yes. Okay. All right. And Janessa, I'm going to assume, is okay with it too. All right. I'm trying to think. ARHE, yeah. Let's see, Michael, in the world of research.
Hey guys, so
what's happening?
So the good news is I'm not teaching this semester, so I'm really going to be focusing heavily on research now. I'm really excited about it. So the way my schedule works is I do all my teaching in the fall, and then I have 8 months free of teaching just to do research. So I'm really excited about that. So it's starting off this week. So what's happening in my world right now? So we have our biggest project is we're opening 12, is that right? No, I think more than that. Four in Houston, 4 in Austin, that's 8, 2 in San Angelo, 10, 2 in El Paso, 12, 1 or 2 in Midland. So 13 or 14 recovery residences, level 2 and 3 across the state of Texas. The first homes are scheduled to open in March. And then the others will probably be opening up sometime in April, we're thinking. And so we're really excited about that. Those are for folks specifically on MAT for an opioid use disorder. And so the housing is free. It's paid for by the state and through the opioid dollars. And so we'll be evaluating outcomes for recovery residences at a level 2 and 3, because most of the work has been primarily out of Jason Leonard's shop out on Oxford Homes. So just kind of your level 1 Oxford Homes is most of the research in recovery residences. So not much on these higher higher models. So we're really excited about that. That's the big thing. And I bring that up only because you guys have been talking about homes today, and I've been jumping out of my skin because I've been thinking about how do I combine the work with recovery residences with my interest in APGs. And so that's why I want to have that conversation, particularly with Robin and John and other folks who are interested in that conversation. So we can have that conversation. Related to building then where I left off in August, and it sounds like I want to have a conversation with Heidi soon too. I'm really interested in thinking about the standardization of measurement across APGs, and what does that look like? And so thinking about the quickest way to identify what measures everyone is using and what are the challenges they're having with measurement. And then coming up with like a way to standardize that. That is sort of where my brain is going with the APG world at the moment, because we need to kind of get standardized measures if we're going to do comparisons across organizations across the country. So that's kind of where my brain is going at the moment. But I'm definitely here to listen and hear what everyone else is thinking, and be a sponge to kind of get ideas for what are the outstanding research questions that are important to you guys.
One of our new guys I think just signed in. But one of the questions that came up is level 2 or level 3. What does that, can you explain a little of that? The difference between level 2 and level 3. Well, you're muted for some reason. Did I do that to you?
Oh, sorry. There we go. Sorry about that. So within the world of recovery residents, there's actually 4 levels. And so you can think of a level 4 as essentially being like a residential treatment facility. That's essentially what a level 4 is like, right? So it's staffed with therapist, and it has a therapeutic component built into it. A level 3, 2, or 1 is not a therapeutic environment. It's just a home, right? But the level of staffing and services vary in those different homes. So a level 3 home is usually staffed by 2 people. So usually have a house manager and then like an assistant house manager. Oftentimes that assistant is compensated by a place to live, right? So it's kind of like the staff tend to be senior residents who come up, right? Just kind of comes like the APG model. It's people who come up in the homes. And a level 3 is differentiated primarily from a level 2 by the amount of programming that happens. And so you have in a level 3 a lot of life skills programming. Yeah, it's a lot of life skills programming. So it's the degree of programming separates the level 3 from the level 2. A level 1 is an Oxford house, essentially. And if you guys aren't sure what an Oxford house is, those are they're everywhere. There's a lot of them. I think there's over like 2,000 Oxford houses in the country. Those are essentially what you would think of as your typical sober living home. It has no programming attached to it, no staff, and it tends to be folks who just agree to create a supportive sober space where they're living together. There are rules that govern Oxford homes. People are voted in by the members of the home, and have to be at least 80% vote of the members to get you in. So that's kind of the rundown of the 4. Does that help?
Does me.
Yes,
Anybody
thank
else pipe up if it doesn't help. You need more, please.
Okay.
Here we go. Hold on.
So the reason I got, just to finish that 30-second thought, the reason I'm kind of interested particularly in thinking about what would an APG recovery residence look like is there is no standardization within recovery residences of a life skills curricula. And if you're trying to think about building an evidence base in both spaces, right, then you have to have evidence-based curricula. So I think there's opportunity there. So that's kind of where my research and interest are really moving. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yes, yes. Tim, can you hear us? Here we go. There he is. Hey, man. Give us just a second, guys. Tim, can you hear us? Oh. Here we go. You can hear us now, can't you?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. Tim, this is some of the group from all over the different places around the country, and I've been telling them about you. And I'm sorry, it actually started at 11. I don't know why. I don't know. I've been checking things as hard and fast as I can the whole time, but I'm glad you signed on just before we are
Yeah.
having to sign off. But because I've been talking about you and that you're doing, and Michael, the gentleman that was just talking when you came on, he's waving at you, was just talking about all the work we're doing with the APGs and some of the things he's involved with research-wise, and especially around sober housing, sober living, sober housing, lack of a better term, all of those kind of things, and hooked together because there's history, as I said, history go way, way, way back. Maybe the first sober housing or some of the first sober housing ever done was done with adolescents in San Diego in actually, there was an adult sober living house in Houston, Texas in 1978 that PADAP had, that was part of the original alternative peer group type program. So there's so much to share and so much that we can work with each other on. So Tim, I've already actually talked to them about you and everything. And as I said, I'm sorry that you're only catching it just before we sign off. But next week, we do them at 11 o'clock on Wednesdays. And I do have both of y'all's emails in the list. So I don't know why it was so problematic getting to you. Next time, and this goes for everybody, if you ever have problems, don't hesitate to call me, because I have my phone sitting here and looking at it. Okay. But
Well,
Tim, I'm so happy you're here, man.
Well, I appreciate it, John. Good to see you. I'm excited. I am at this point, Bill and I both, and I was texting with him, and I believe he just got it, but I'm not sure he's able to sign on this late. But Bill runs the family side, and I don't know if you mentioned that.
I had not.
Yeah, because that's a big part of what we do here in our sober living is that the full recovery trajectory is something that I read, copied, spelled, or whatever it was, but alongside the person in active addiction seeking recovery are the people most affected are the family members or the people at work or the people that are closest to them for whatever reason. And that builds up a resentment in an otherwise caring and loving relationship. And that has to be addressed, especially as you start progressing through early recovery. And that's a lot of our focus.
Well, you are preaching to the choir, my friend. These APGs, all of them, a major element is the family program. That's it. That's a major element. Doubles the success rates, those kind of approximately something like that. Without that, you got a whole different, it isn't an APG, which goes to a question that was asked. Is there a certification for APGs? And the answer is yes, there is. And I encourage everybody to start the process. I can't remember if the certification, I think that it's not on the website right now, the certification instructions, but if you will send me an email, I'll be glad to send you a copy. Okay.
Okay, I really appreciate that help. Like when you and I spoke yesterday, I know what my little part is, but I know what my limits are.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm really concerned, and I need that kind of help. I need that kind of support. I need that kind of handoff. I need to, you know, I need the group. is
Well,
what I need.
we all do, and that's why we have this. And you'll be glad to know. And then I've got to break myself here, but Hunter had asked about that, and I've had it from other members on this call, and then as well as some of the extended things. But let me tell you this about the certification process. It is not a you got to do everything, and then somebody comes out and looks through your books and checks everything off. It is not set up that way. It is set up to kind of, since this session was on goals for the year, it is set up with goals for your program and assistance in getting those things done. This weekly session is part of that assistance, to answer questions, share successes, share ideas that are working in different places. But the book, the certification manual, it actually helps you to kind of identify areas that we do know, like the family thing. We do know that an APG without a family element, you are really denting the success rates, heavily denting. Well, it's got those kind of things. We've been able to delineate those things that are necessary over, the last 50 years. So you'll find it helpful. So just please send me an email.
Okay.
And I will be glad to send a copy to you. I have got to go. I love you guys. And Tim, I'm sorry it took so long. Next time it won't. You are in the group mail. You two guys are in the group mailing address list, the book. So you get ready because you'll get it. But it always comes just before the session. If I try and schedule things too far ahead, things overlap. It turns into a bigger mess than if I just do it. Send these presentations out.
I run and probably it's not your fault at all. I'll go ahead and own it, but I run everything that I have through HIPAA approved data communication system. And
they probably spotted me as a problem then.
No, to run it through those filters, and for the first time, it takes a few minutes until I give it it finally came in, and I had to give it the thumbs up that this is safe. And then we are a go. So we shouldn't have that problem.
I know I have all of your banking information and all of your client information now too, which would be a lot of fun. I love you guys. I'll talk to you next week. And again, Tim, sorry it took so long. I'm so thrilled you're here because APGs work for adolescents, young adults, and adults. They work across the board. This is a model that is proven effective. So let's rock this thing. Okay.
All right.
Love
you.
Good deal. Bye-bye.
Bye now.